Hello, and welcome to RNS Laser Technology. I'm Steven, the president of RNS, and today we are going to be assembling our 5x10 and 4x4 Pro 2.0 tables. So let's get started.
Alright, so before you go and install one of these Pro 2.0s, what you'll need for spacing is on either side you'll need 9.5 inches at least, and then in the back you'll need 30 inches from the front feet, or from the back feet. So from the back of the legs, 30 inches to the back wall. That'll be enough room once the rails are on and the drag chain to move back and forward freely. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you got to get your legs out of the boxes. The boxes, there will be 3 boxes. The very long box is going to have 2 of your legs, and there's going to be a flatter box, a big flat box. That one's going to have the third leg. It will actually be sandwiched between the 2 material trays. So you'll have to take them out and then pull that third leg out. When you set them up, the 2 of the legs are the same. The one's different. The different one is going to be your center leg. The difference here is that it has 2 of these posts. The front and the back are going to have missing a post, and when you set them up, you want your front piece to have the post facing forward. In the back leg, you want that post to be in the back. So as you can see here, they have A, B, and C on each one. This order might change depending on which machine you have, but it will be A, B, and C, or A, B, and C. And then when you go and set up your legs, you're going to want each one to be roughly 56.5 inches apart from face to face. So as we got here, we have these ones set up exactly 56.5 here, and then 56.5 here. You don't have to worry too much about leveling yet. Once we get the rails on, that's when you'll worry about leveling. And that's pretty much it for setting up the legs. Then you can go in and you can adjust your feet to all touch the floor, and then that'll also be part of the leveling once you get the rails on. So. Alright, so now we have our rails on. If you're looking at the machine, you're going to want your ABC side to be the left side, and then your right side will have 1, 2, 3, 4 on only the rail. It won't have it on the legs. When you bring them in, there's 3 pads on the bottom of each rail. As you can see, it sticks down a little bit. Those pads you want to land on the legs. So there's going to be 3 pads along this side, 3 pads along the other side. Set those so they land on the legs. Pause it. So when you go to screw in the legs, don't screw them all in to start off. What we're going to start is we're just going to screw in the outside inside bolt on the front right here. So this is our front. You're going to want to screw this bolt in on both sides, only that one, and leave it loose. Just screw it 70% of the way in so that it's in there and the rails won't fall off. The reason for that is because we want to align the rails, and we're going to use the gantry to do that. So once the gantry's on, we'll slide it back and forward, and that'll automatically align your rails to your legs. All right, so now we're going to talk about the leveling of the bed and the gantry install or pre-install. So when you want to level it, what you're going to do is you're going to take a level and Just run it on your rail here. On the teeth is better. And just make sure it's level, left to right. Same with the other side. We got level left to right. And then you want to do your side to side, which is going to be using the legs to do that. And do the front and the rear first, and then come back and do the middle. And then once you got it all leveled, you can come on over here and we can get ready for the gantry install. Basically, you're gonna have bump stops on either side of the front of the machine. So you want to remove these bump stops. They just unbolt. And then you're gonna have your limit switch plate. That will need to be removed as well. And then that's about it. Then you bring the gantry in. You'll need a forklift or some sort of hoist, and then you'll just slide it on, and then from there we'll work on aligning the rails.
Hold on, you gotta go down.
All right, so what we did was you saw us get the gantry mounted up. Basically, there are 3 rollers that it needs to line up with on the channel. So you just line up the divot on the roller with each side of the bumps on the channel, and then you got to do it both sides, get them lined up right, and it'll slide right on. If you don't have it lined up, it might get tweaked, and then it won't slide on. So you just got to move it around until it kind of gets lined up perfectly to slide on. Then what we do is we move it all the way to the back, and we put some bolts in the very back of the rail and tighten them all up, and then we bring it all the way to the front. And first thing you do before you bring it all the way to the front is make sure you got your bump stops reinstalled so it doesn't slide off the end. Bump stops, and then install your plate, and then bring it to the front. And then as you can see, he's over here tightening down those bolts. And then once we got all these tightened down, we'll go back to the middle and we'll install the middle bolts. All right, so next up we're moving on to the drag chain. We have ours set up right here. It should come looking like this for the most part. It's going to be wrapped in plastic, and somewhere in that plastic you're going to have 4 bolts. They're like this. They're Allen heads, and they're about 1 inch long. For the right side of the machine is where it's going to end up on the right side. That's where you have the 1, 2, 3, 4. If you look over here on the drag chain, you're going to have your one. Each hole is going to label 1, 2, 3, 4. So our setup is going to be a little bit more difficult because we're putting it right up against the wall. So we're going to have to squeeze in there. But if you were setting it farther away from the wall, you would have more room to work on it. This one, we already popped all our clips out so that it's easier to work on when it's over there. But for the clips, you just kind of grab them, twist them back, and they'll all pop out. Go one at a time. and then just move it on over there and we'll get it installed and show you some video of that. Alright, so now we're going to run our wiring. What we're going to do is unfold it from here, and then we'll run it down along the track here, and then it's going to come down to here, and these are actually for your drag chain. That's where it's going to mount up. But when you are removing these clips, you're going to want to remove these top ones as well, so that the wiring can come through here and then go into the drag chain, and then it's going to run all the way down to the other side. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll show you some footage of that, and then we'll move on to setting up our hoses and our fiber cable after that. Now it is very important to make sure that this, for your oiler, you want this plug to be loose. So you want to bring some extra out this way and just kind of move it over there, and then get your wires kind of set where they need to be. Next, you're going to want to find your drag chain, your Z-axis chain assembly. It's going to mount right on top here. Here's your top 2 bolts. They're going to go in these holes. So you can just take these out, and then on this side, we're gonna mount those to these 3 bolts right here. So these 3 spots. And then while you're at it, you're also gonna wanna remove this small bolt back here. This one right here, it's gonna help us lift this up so we can get wires routed through here later. So take that one out, hang on to it, and then we'll go ahead and do this real quick and move on to the next part. Alright, so now we're getting ready to install all of our lines. So this drag chain comes assembled, it'll be installed. What you'll need to do is come back here, take this rear panel off. We just kind of got it moved out of the way. And then there's bolts in here, and then holding the drag chain on, you just unbolt those. The drag chain is off. And then there's this bolt here that we talked about on the last one. You got to take that out. And then once you got it out, now you can lift this piece up And what that's gonna do is that's gonna give us the room to feed the fiber optic cable through here and under and into our drag chain up here. So that's, make sure these are all loose, and then pop all your clips off. We'll go ahead and do right after this. And then this still needs to be loose because we're gonna run the cables through here and onto there. So that's why you want this top piece out, because the fiber optic cable is gonna have to go through the top and over. All right, so now we're gonna get into bringing our fiber optic cable, routing it through the drag chain, and then putting the head on. And so big thing is be careful with the head, be careful with your fiber optic cable, make sure it doesn't kink or anything, because there are fiber optics inside of it, and those are not very easy to replace. So we'll go ahead and grab our head. Kind of got the wires where we got our laser source kind of in our general area where we're going to want to keep it, and then we have our wire wrapped up right there, so it's close and we can just kind of unroll it as we pull it through. We'll go ahead and run it down our drag chain. And then when you get over to this side, this is where you're going to want to keep it in your chain, and then just bring it underneath inside here. And then it's going to come up, follow these wires, and kind of go the same area. And then just make sure you don't drop your head anywhere. There's some slack. Making sure not to put any kinks in it. And then we're going to run it underneath our gantry here, and then over top. And then this is why we undid that screw, because the cable is going to go inside the drag chain, and then you lift this up, stick it under there, right into our little hole here, and then it's going to go up and over on this chain. And then, so when you mount it to the head, it's gonna go in these top 4 bolts, not this one, but the top, using the top one, and then the second one down on each hole. So now once you get the head lined up, into those holes, we're going to put first couple in, just get them started. Okay, so now when you're mounting this up, you're going to want to align the head as well, and that's going to take, like, leave all the bolts loose, and then you're going to measure off the edge of the frame here to the edge of the head on both sides and get them equal so that it's square all the way around. On this one we marked it off because we already had it installed at one point. So this one, there's already lines for us to go by, but you're going to want to take some calipers and measure that distance, make sure it's equal on both sides. Alright, so when you go to put this bolt in right here, you will have to take this off. Just be careful with it because this cable is very delicate, so just kind of bring it down, let it hang slightly, and then tighten that bolt up. Once you got it all aligned, bring this back up and just make sure it's not kinked or anything or have a hard kink in it, and then you can bolt it back in. Okay, so now we're going to move on to setting up all our wiring for the head and our hoses. So we got that fiber wire ran through that area, so we can go ahead and reinstall this bolt here. And then once you got this installed, there's a couple things to look for here. In this wiring, we're gonna have this plug. This is for our CO or our O2 regulator. So we'll go ahead and install that. It's got a little keyway on it, so you just gotta get it lined up right. And then screw it in. Now, this quick connect, this is for our O2. This is going to be for our nitrogen. So right here we have our 2 water lines. Those are going to go to the head. You can tell they're water lines because they say in and out. So we'll just kind of move those over. And then here's our O2 and N2 lines. So once again, nitrogen is going to go in our front, towards the front of the machine. Our O2 is going to go towards the rear. Just kind of push it in there, and they're in. Now we got our signal wires. Those are also going to go over to the head. Just run them over, down. Now, you got those installed. All of them have a different plug. One has 4, and then so on. Each one has a different number of pins. The 4 pins is going to go down here on your right, and they're all keyed. So kind of get them lined up, screw them in. And then same for these. Just try to make sure that they're going in easy. You don't want to force them or bend any of those pins. Now, we got your water lines here. The one, get this tape off. Now the one going in to the top of the head, right into the top of the laser source head, is going to be your in, and then you'll see they're both marked in. You just kind of push those together, and then you got one all the way coming from the bottom of the head down here. That's going to be your out. So that one out, and then run it to your out line. Now this white line is coming out of the back of the regulators here. It will be hanging out just wherever. Pull this spring all the way down. It's just to protect the line and help it bend. And then push it all the way in to the drag chain and run it over the top. It's kind of a difficult line. It doesn't bend very easy. And then run it right on down into this quick connect right here on the bottom of the head. You might have to trim a little off in case it's too long. Just push it in there. And it's connected. And now that you got everything connected, you can kind of loosen everything up, reroute the wires so that they fit well, and then start snapping your tabs back on to hold everything secure. That's it. Okay, so the last thing we just did was remount our drag chain right here. Just make sure that when you mount it back up, you go back in the panel there and mount those screws, but make sure that none of these wires are getting pinched inside the frame here. Just make sure they're all loose and you got a little bit of slack on them, and then you can remount that and then put all your caps back on, your tabs, and then move on over to here. After that, what we're gonna do now is install our water lines and our air lines. We already got this mounted back up. We got the caps off here so we can still get through there. We got this wire kind of loose, which is what we want. We want it out here. And then you have one high pressure line, the white one, that's gonna be your nitrogen line or air line. And then you're gonna have 3 low pressure lines. 2 of them are gonna be your water lines. And then the last one's gonna be your O2 line. So we mount them there, and now we'll show you how that's done. All right, so now we've got our lines run, we've got all our clips on all the way down. So now our wires and our hoses are just hanging out on the other side. We'll put this panel, this cover back on. This is it. There is 4 bolts for it. There's 2 right here, and then 2 on the inside. It's gonna be the top 2. There's also the oil line, this one right here, and then the plug for the oiler. You kind of want those up in the top because there's going to be a gap in the panel right here for those 2. So when you put it on, just make sure you don't pinch any lines and you get those 2 lines up on that gap and then bolt it in right there. And then after you got that bolted in, we'll come on over here to the other side. So, come on over here. So all your wires and your fiber wire and your hoses are all gonna go in this gap right here, this little key notch out. But what I like to do is take one of the foam from some of the foam from the packaging of the laser and everything, shove it in there just to protect these lines, and then get your hoses in there with your fiber wire, and then you can bring your wiring leave this collar on top, bring your wiring underneath, shove conduit up in there. And tighten it down. Now once you got that all tightened down, you have a cover for it. You got the bolts in the cover, just take them off, and then the cover will go right on top, goes on the inside of the channel, and then your bolts go right into the cover on the outside. There should be 3 bolts, and that's it for that. All right, so now that we got our wire all ran through, our conduit and everything, we're gonna talk about wiring it up. Now this part, there's a lot of wires. A lot of them are going to different areas, so it's not as difficult as it looks. These right here, these orange ones with all these plugs, they're gonna be going to the VFDs. I'll show you what the VFDs are in a second. These two, this one is gonna be going into the back. It's gonna be going right up into this guy right here, and then this one's gonna be going up into the front, and I'll show you that when we go around to the front. Now, you're also gonna have this wiring loom. This one is for your signal wires for your laser source and your chiller. So now, this side right here, you're gonna be putting those through the hole in the back of the terminal right there. And so, those will go into the terminal. Then on your other side, you have this connector. It's gonna go on the back of the laser source. Right here. And then you'll have these guys. They're gonna go into the front of the chiller. We'll show you that when we get to it. And then once you got those fed through, you also gotta feed these through. They're all gonna go through the bigger hole right here. Just feed them all through, push them in, and then connect your conduit back there. And then we'll come around to the front and I'll show you where everything's gonna go. So now, when those VFD connectors, the plugs I showed you, they're all gonna go on the bottom right here of each VFD. Now each one has an X, Y, Z, all the axes on it. There's gonna be 2 Ys, which are these 2 middle ones. This is your X, and then this is your Z. They're labeled. Look at the labels on the other wires going in, because they're all labeled accordingly. And then you just plug them right into there on the bottom of the each VFD. And one's a Y1, one's a Y2, just make sure you don't have those mixed up. And then all the other little wires are all gonna go down these. Now, your machine may show up with these connectors all the clips up, or they'll show up with them down. If they're down, just be very careful when you're lifting them up. They are kind of easy to break. Just kind of gently pull them up and shove your wire in and bring them down. Now, what you do is you connect all the wires to the matching wire on the other side. Look at the wire that's leading up to the group of wires. So this would be your F, and then match up all of the plugs straight across with those. And over here it gets kind of repetitive. You're gonna look at your X here, and then it says UVW with your ground. Just make sure that everyone is in the same order. So when you put it in, make sure you got the U with the U, because it may be UVW, 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 and then one may be VUW. So just keep an eye out for that, and then work your way down. You're gonna have all the wires here. Just check your label. This is Y plus minus, and then connect those connectors all into those spots. And then work your way down. Just check your label, match the wires. So now you're gonna have one ground left over. It's gonna go right there. And what you do is you stick a screwdriver in here, push it down, kind of tweak it in one way, and then you should be able to push the wire in and then let go, and it'll clamp down on that wire. And then now there was that one more green plug with the 4 prongs. It's gonna go up to the top right here into this plug. And that's pretty much it. Looks like a lot of wires. It is a lot of wires, but they're all clearly labeled and easy to install. So, yeah. So the last thing we did was put in the wiring. Wiring's all done now, so now we're moving on to getting the slat trays in. So basically, when you put them together, you're gonna have an L1, L1, L2, L2, and then you'll have the middle section and these side pieces. Side pieces are just straight piece of metal. They're gonna go on either sides, and then you're gonna have the middle section. It's just a straight piece with two folded sides, and then you have these guys, a C-channel with the slots in it. Just make sure when you're putting it together, you have all the slots facing in, and then same with this, you want them facing the same side that it's gonna be on, that the slots are gonna go into as the C-channel, and then put your end pieces on. It's pretty simple. All the hardware is in a bag. We'll show you, this is what the hardware is gonna look like. It's just chrome plated Allen bolts. And then when you get them all in, or once you get it all built, then you can just bring it in. There's, on these posts, there's holes. So the middle has the two posts. You're gonna have the little slots in it for the holes, or the bolts to go in. There's a little slot right here, if you can see it. And then it's all the way around all four corners. When you first put it in, leave them loose until you get the second tray in here. And then once you get the second tray, put those bolts in, and then there's bolts to bolt the two trays together right here, and it's a bolt with a nut on the other side. So we'll go ahead and do that now, and then we'll come back to you with the final part. All right, so now we have everything wired up. We have our table all ready with our trays in. They're going in this one right now. But we're gonna run our cooling lines. Depending on what machine you have, whether it's a 2000, 3000, whatever it is. This is a 2000, so we have our lines coming from the table. They're going to be your normal lines, and then you have your lines going to the laser. They're going to be your low pressure. Some, depending on what laser source it is, you're either going to have bigger lines, so those ones will be easier because you're going to have a really big line, like a inch diameter line. But this one's a 2000, so it runs the same size hose for both. So we have on the lines, you got your in and your out. That's going to be your inlet and outlet. On the back of the chiller, it's labeled inlet, outlet, and you have your normal and your low pressure, and then same thing, your low and your normal. So we got our outlet for our normal. It's going to be right here in our normal outlet, and then our inlet for our normal is going to be over here. So we're going right there on our in. And now here's our lines. We already ran them to our laser source. Same thing, it's gonna have an in and outlet on the back, which you can see in and out and in and out. And so we'll do the same thing. We're gonna go in for our low pressure and out for our low pressure. Now, once you have that run, each chiller is gonna be different. Depending on what it is. Again, like this is a 2000, so it only takes about 4 to 5 gallons of distilled water, and you do that, you fill it up from the back right here. Here's your fill, and then you fill it up right up to the top of normal. Once you fill it up to the top of normal, depending on how much you put in there, when you go and start up the machine for the first time, you want to check it again, because when the lines fill up, it's going to take some water. But if you have anything bigger, it might take up to 6 gallons of distilled water, so the bigger lines will take up more water. And then we got all those wired in, or lined in. Now we got our signal wires for our chiller, which are these 2 wires that were connected to the same wire as the signal wire for the laser, which we have plugged into the back. So over here, you pop the little cover off the front, and then just match the colors. You got a brown and a blue. Just shove them up in there. Push the tab down, shove it up in there. And then the blue one, same thing. Push the tab down, and then it's in. And then you run your power, and same thing. You got your ground here, and then you just got your 2 hots right there. And if it's a 3-phase, same thing. Just you're gonna have another phase in there. And then you have a breaker right here on the front of the chillers. You have a breaker, or if it's a 2000, you have a breaker on the back. If it's a 3000 plus, it usually just has a switch. And that is pretty much it for wiring and for the cooling. I think that's, for the most part, it for the machine. Once we get ours all set up, we'll go ahead and come back and show you operation and first startup and all that. So there we go.